It's truly all about money. So the discussions that are had in C-suites are physicians are nothing more than a widget. And that's what's discussed. How do we churn revenue and use patients and physicians as widgets? They're inputs and outputs. And I've worked at the highest levels, and that's how health systems view you. That is how corporations certainly view you.
Welcome to the Maha Marketing Podcast, where bold voices rise against the status quo. We champion functional medicine heroes fighting for real whole body health. These are the courageous men and women in your community taking on the institutional rot of our medical system. This podcast is your platform for purpose, integrity, and fearless strategy. Subscribe now and join the revolution in real health and authentic business.
All right. Today's guest is someone who doesn't walk the tightrope of healthcare politics. This dude cuts the damn rope. And Heath Veuleman, correct me if be sure I'm saying that right.
Veuleman.
He is the self-proclaimed healthcare mercenary, a strategist, a fixer, and a guy you call when you are ready to burn the playbook and build something that is actually working within the system. He has worked in the guts of the system, seen the waste, the lies, the misguided incentives that suck the life out of doctors and leave patients stuck in an endless loop of red tape. But what makes Heath dangerous in truly the best ways isn't just that he understands the problem, is that he knows how to win inside of that chaos. In this conversation, we're going to unpack what he's fighting for, what he's fighting against, and why most physicians are still playing checkers in a chess game designed to bleed them dry. We won't reveal everything up front here, but by the end of this episode, I hope you will understand why Heath is someone certainly worth watching and listening to, following on X, and why the smartest players in the healthcare system are doing just that. This isn't just about medicine. This is about power, purpose, and reclaiming your role in a system that was never built to serve you in the first place. Heath, how you doing, man? So happy to have you on here.
Thanks for having me. It's hot in New Orleans and stormy. So if you hear a thunderstorm, that's us.
Yeah, I'm in a couple hours away from you, but we're going through the same thing here. I'm in Greenville, South Carolina. I know New Orleans very well. I was in the military station in Fort Polk, Louisiana.
Yeah.
So I made my way down to Lake Charles and Baton Rouge and New Orleans quite a few times during my young, rebellious, early 20s.
Debauched days.
Yes, the days of debauchery.
Yeah.
So, man, I love that you describe yourself as a healthcare mercenary. You know, not a reformer, not an administrator. You know, that's a very loaded word. But what does that mean to you? And how did you become that guy?
Well, I started out as a healthcare administrator, and I started out very young, and I started out in a rural hospital, and I didn't know what I was doing, and I had a lot of failure. And it is the best teacher. And so eventually I left hospitals and started a consulting firm, and a corporate CEO, people would, if I named, said, what you are is a mercenary. And it was accurate. I had to stop making value judgments and just get things done. And so, especially when you're working with large corporations and governments, it's not, it's payment. And, I kind of stopped that in 20 when I was sitting in a hotel. I was like, man, this is just madness. I cannot believe smart people are doing this, and I can no longer be a part of this. This is insanity. I'm selling my soul. And so I stopped, and I'd gotten a call about a physician-owned hospital. Knew sort of the issues with them, didn't know all of these, just the ridiculousness. And since then, physicians can't pay me what I was getting paid, and there is no red badge of courage working for these sons of bitches. They are the hardest people to work for in the world. There is no glory in it, but it's just the right thing to do. And so I've kind of used what I've learned from the starting out in rurals, which is that's who gets it done. These people have a lot of emotional leverage and a lot of legislative support, and that's where I learned. And so I use those tactics, applied them in large corporations, and kind of know the ins and outs. So that's how it really came to be.
That's awesome, man. So it says you've worked behind the scenes in so many of these dysfunctional corners of the system. What is something that you've seen that you think would shock the average physician or even a patient that was listening to this?
It's truly all about money. So the discussions that are had in C-suites, our physicians are nothing more than a widget. And that's what's discussed. How do we churn revenue and use patients and physicians as widgets? Their inputs and outputs. And I've worked at the highest levels, and that's how health systems view you. That is how corporations certainly view you. Both are soulless, but health systems they at least are tethered to the grief. These administrators will walk through hospitals. They won't do anything because they don't know anything. Dumbest people on the face of the earth, hospital administrators. Empty vessels, empty suits. But that's what it is. And people, I think, have that suspicion. I think physicians have that suspicion. But until you're in the room, until you're at the board table and you hear it, and I've been part of it. And so, but now as I reflect on it, it's gobsmacking to hear those conversations.
How do you think we got here?
Money, incentives. Incentives are real. And it's not just, basic behavioral science. But there is a dark triad, and it is wealth, power, and influence. And healthcare is very insular. There are only 6,100 hospitals, or maybe 6,200 hospitals today. I don't know the exact number, but just over 6,000 hospitals in America for 400 million people. The truth is, we don't even need all of those hospitals. That we are overbedded in the United States. You wouldn't think that during COVID. You would think that every single bed was full and people were in 18-wheeler trucks and all this kind of stuff. We are overbedded in the United States. There are only 1.1 million physicians for 400 million people. Physicians are scarce. And that's not 1.1 million orthopedic surgeons. That's not 1.1 million primary care physicians. That's 1.1 million total. And of that 1.1 million, 72% thereabout are owned by health systems, private equity, or Optum. Optum owns, 11%, 12% of the physicians in the United States. So it's all about money. And healthcare is 20% of our GDP, trillions of dollars. I think in 2023 is right at $5 trillion, maybe just a little bit over. TT, $5 trillion, 20% of our GDP. So it's not your health that's driving it. In fact, we're incented for you to be unwell in the United States. And at the end of the day, it's all about money.
Yeah. Well, I always had a weird thing during COVID. It blows my mind, just like you're talking about being gobsmacked at like people that are working within the system and being like, how do you not see this? Like, or how do you like not have the courage or the intestinal fortitude to actually like do something about it or to acknowledge it or to, at least move us in the right direction, whatever little increment that you can. But I remember during COVID seeing all these things. I'm from New York originally, so I've got a lot of friends still in the city. Actually, most of them have left the city. So a lot of the friends will say surrounding the city. Nobody wants to live in Manhattan or in the 5 boroughs anymore. But I remember like they set up that big mobile unit in Central Park and things like this. And yeah, I'm still opening social media and I'm seeing like nurses do dances and stuff like that. And I was like, does anybody else like not make this connection? Like, why is this just weird to me that nurses have time to practice dances, TikTok dances, and yet we have mobile units in Central Park? Like, there's some disconnect here that I don't know why more people didn't have a little light bulb moment. But the entire time I was like, this is bananas. Like, this is not reality. What's going on here?
Well, and what's crazy is there were pockets. So there were pockets where there was very high utilization and there was very high saturation. And but part of it was the psychology of the crisis. It was so chaotic that that chaos kept breeding chaos. But when I say it was just in Louisiana, parish to parish, and in the rest of America, county to county, there were some counties that had very little impact with nurses doing TikTok dances. And then you had others that were just overwhelmed. And people, I would get calls from hospitals across the United States, and people were on stretchers and these kind of things, and they were getting zero resources from the government. It was bizarre. It was a real bizarre. And then I would have another person call and say, hey, are you hearing anything about COVID? I mean, this was in the height, the March, April through summer, August, September of 2020. People, bitching about, well, we can't do elective surgery. Can you believe we can't do elective surgery over here? And there's nothing wrong. And our office is running wide open and we don't do masks here. And it was bizarro. It was a bizarro world. And then of course the science kept changing. And I have 12 hours of graduate level epidemiology that came with my master's degree that I didn't finish, and partial doctorate that I didn't even really get into the second year. And, it was just, science was out the window. It was bizarre how all this stuff transpired and what was going on. It was odd.
And do you feel that was a wake up call for just a shit ton of people that actually made that connection?
I do. Prior to March 4th, 2020, when there was a CMS memo that came out for survey and certification, when they kind of suspended survey and certification for a period of time, that was on March 4th, you would have called me an institutionalist. And I believed in system structures and processes. And today I mocked Joe Rogan. I didn't listen to podcasts. I supported institutions. Today, I'm not sure that a cabal of Satanists, pedophiles aren't running everything. And it sounds so bizarre coming out of my mouth. And if the handful of people who really know me would be, gosh, that's so strange. And seeing me in a polo. I wore a suit and tie 6 days a week and a blazer on Sunday for 20 years. So, COVID changed a lot for a lot of people, and just being in it and then kind of being sidelined when I would bring something up. And it didn't take long, and I was sidelined very quick in institutions. And then just the observations, I just couldn't believe it. And friends who I know are smart people or other smart people, but you can see the connections, And I think one of the differences with me is I was never a W-2 employee. Well, not since I left being a hospital administrator. I owned my own firm, self-employed. That I was a contractor. So I wasn't dependent upon a hospital telling me what to do or what to say or what to believe. Or I wasn't saturated in that world. So I had a luxury other people didn't have.
Yeah.
Right.
Obviously, as COVID went on and as my own perspective grew, there's a little bit of a wedge there because I'm like, yeah, get rid of the Department of Education. It's not doing anything. You start seeing the institutional rot in so many things, but so many people are just kind of beholden to that system. They either can't get out or they don't have the freedom and liberty to voice how they actually feel, or they put blinders on and they refuse to look at anything outside of that, that narrow focus of we're doing the best we can with it. And I'm over here going yo, there's AI. Why aren't we massively exploring this option for solving a wide variety of problems? So I'm right with you in a lot of this. That Joe Rogan joke always makes me laugh. I've always been a fan of Joe Rogan, but that joke that he says about before COVID, I would have told you vaccines were the most safe, the greatest invention in humankind. After COVID, I think Pizzagate's real. You're like, what is going on?
There's video of me at hospitals doing lectures mocking anti-vaxxers.
Uh-huh.
I did not take the COVID vaccine. I am unvaccinated. I was called an anti-vaxxer. I'm not. I also don't think kids need 72 vaccines. I'm not a pediatrician. Do not take medical advice from me. I'm an administrator, not a physician. But when you start digging into the literature, which COVID started to force me to do, start reading the literature and start pouring into this and not just defer to authority, which is a classical fallacy that you can, in one of the 188 cognitive biases. When I started reading the literature, I'm like, oh gosh, we have a problem. We have a real problem. It's not just regulatory capture, it's science capture. And I was able to serve as a trustee on a college at a very young age. I'm not saying I should have, but for 6 years I was a trustee for a college. And I can tell you how education works. It is, again, all about money. I can tell you how research is done. I've had a client that has an amazing biomedical device and went to San Jose, will not talk about the corporation, but how they fund research is all, and that's back when I was an institutionalist and knew it and was like, oh, we just need to do this, this, and this, and kiss this ass and suck this dick, and then, and jump through these hoops. And that is how it typically works, starting in universities, and then you pair with corporations. But it is completely captured. That science is completely captured. And so it's a rough awakening, I guess. It's been rough and tumble since 2020.
Yeah, and then the people that still are holding on to these institutions, they think that like if you just turn a dial just a little bit and it'll self-correct, turn dial a little bit, and I'm like, I throw the dial over at this point. Like, let's rebuild the dial, because I don't think that you can fix it by making those incremental changes anymore.
You can't. And I'll tell you up front, I am an idealist, and I'm an idealist. And I understand how idealism does not work in system structures and processes, that I was taught to be, you have to be an incrementalist. The problem is math and physics. Math and physics undergirds everything. And there is something called, and I'm not a big ism guy and a big ology guy, but there is something called exponentialism, and that's math. Math doesn't work in the favor of incrementalism. Math compounds things over time, and it informs everything. And math and physics informs our ontology, and it informs, the abacus. How many oranges do we have on the table? So the only way to correct this is to burn it to the ground. You cannot correct this incrementally. It doesn't work. Go back to just the incentives. 20% of the GDP, $5 trillion. It will be more than that this year. That was $5 trillion in 2023. So I don't remember what the budget is, for this year. I don't even know if it's come out yet, since all we do is CR in the government now. But it will be, add 20% to it. You can add 20, 25% to that number. And so it will be over $5 trillion. People don't just walk away from that. Think Pfizer is just going to be like, oh, okay, I'm sorry, you got me. Or Amazon or Walmart. It's all, and then the problem is the financial system together. How much of the pension and the retirement is in those equities that return to shareholders? Most people think that there's some cabal of people running these corporations like at WEF or something like that. The truth is even more scary. These corporations are almost self-governing like an intelligent organism. It returns to the shareholder, or that organism finds a way to oust its leadership so it gets more efficient and more effective. That is the nature of corporate governance. And there's a lot of, my degrees are in human behavior that relate to healthcare, but that is group behavior. Corporations are just groups, large social groups that end up becoming like polities. And so those groups are not just going to go by the wayside. They're going to return to the shareholder. And so it's so ingrained, there has to be some kind of large reset. There has to be some, and I think the universe corrects itself. And so I do think that there is something afoot. I do think that there is going to be a gross reset, a major reset that is happening, and it will be unpleasant.
Yeah, there's a little bit of too many, we'll say, synchronicities or a confluence of all these between crypto, between institutional rot being so apparent, between, I mean, regardless of what you feel about the current administration, but like it's very different. It's a group of outsiders and that's not just here. It's also other countries are kind of electing these like outsider groups that, focusing a little bit more on nationalism as opposed to globalism in it. And you said something that I thought was very, very interesting, because it's a slippery slope on that, conspiratorial framework. Does the WEF run everything? The WHO, like what are those entities doing? Yeah, they're, they don't. I would, in my opinion, is they wouldn't have humanity's best interest in mind.
Right.
But even scarier, even worse, so is what you're pointing to, which is like if you have aligned interests at a corporate level, you don't really need boogeymen, right? If you have aligned interests, it doesn't matter what they're doing. You're all still doing the same thing, pursuing the same end outcome for financial gain,
I could tell you the name. I've sat in the room with billionaires that you would recognize on TV. One that runs a very large bank. And these are very unimpressive people. Conspiracies are extremely hard to pull off. They are very, very difficult, even on a small scale. To do it on a grand scale with stupid people at the helm, it's very difficult. The issue is not the conspiracy itself. It's exactly what you just said. It is affinity. Affinity is what drives this. And it is extremely difficult to change, especially inward. You cannot make that change internal. It has to be external. And the longer we put this off, the greater the external threat will be. And you just study cycles. I'm a big fan of studying cycles, studying history. The world does reset itself. When it gets to an apex of stupidity, which is where we're at, it resets. And so we're on the cusp of a reset, and it's because you cannot change affinity from inside. And just to give you an example, it's things as simple as, I don't have to tell, if we're all at New Orleans Country Club, or you're a gentleman and you want to pay I don't know what it is now, it used to be $50,000 to join the Boston Club, and you want to come be a member and drink a martini and, tell racist jokes at the Boston Club on Canal Street, the third oldest gentleman's club in a private club in the United States. You don't have to tell me what to do. I just want to be a member of the club. It's affinity that drives these things. I want to suckle at the power teat. I want the dark triad. And my own desire for wealth, power, and influence drives the affinity. So there is no, people are like, well, where's the smoking email? And of course there are some examples of people being directed to do nefarious things, but usually it's something actually much more simple. It's the power of affinity.
Yeah, I love that phrasing, power of affinity. I'm gonna have to steal that one.
It's very dangerous. Yeah.
Yeah, and one of the difficulties I always run into, because I mean, even there's a loneliness that comes to being like very conspiratorial about things, right? Like you get blocked out of friend groups and family and things like that. I find it's even worse and even more dark, even more lonely, not being conspiratorial, but being insightful, in my opinion, of saying like, you don't need that dark entity, that organized dark entity. You just need dark motivations and dark incentives on a mass scale, and you're going to end up with horribly corrupt systems. And so, I was a big RFK supporter. I got a Kennedy Shanahan sign up in my background here. And it's not, one of the things that I always saw with him was just, he always seemed like he was saying, let's just look at logic. Let's look at the science. Let's look at actual data. Let's not allow corrupted inputs. Let's just get numbers, and then we can make a logical explanation. I used to always tell my wife, I'm like, if I could vote for anybody for president, I'd vote for Spock. Like, give me this guy that's just logical as fuck. He's just here to tell you what you need. And one of the things that I'm like cautiously optimistic about is I see kind of a return to a little bit of logic. It's not, we're not kicking over the barrel and everything's logical yet, but it's at least, it feels like it's moving in that direction. And I think a lot of that's coming through elimination and not through addition, which I think is huge. It's something I advocate for in my own business. Every 2 months I have this day, my simplicity day. I go, what have I bought that I don't need? What have I implemented that's not helping us, right? So if you could snap your fingers and like eliminate a toxic element from, we'll say, the healthcare system, and you could only choose one, what would it be and why?
So it'd be a big one, and it is virtually, it can be done, but it would need a big actors. The problem with healthcare is the third party. So whenever you dislocate an individual from capital, problems arise. So, and that's what the third party does. Don't think about it in terms
Do you mean
of
like
health.
insurance companies?
Yeah,
For the
like
most part?
insurance companies or health systems, government payers, all of whoever is in between a patient and the physician. And that could be a medical school. You can go up the branch, and that would be the LCME, who governs medical schools, how many medical school seats there are, or maybe it's the ABS, the American Board of Specialties for Physicians, and how that's governed and how you have to recertify and all these kinds of things. I mean, there's all kinds of third parties. It's not just one that get in the way of the patient and the physician. Even evidence-based medicine serves the interest of the payer. That is interqual standards. And then you find out that's vertically integrated with a payer. The payer owns the evidence-based medicine. It's crazy. It's crazy. And if I, the individual, am not tethered to the capital that supports my health, I'm paying a company that then pays a physician. And then as the physician, I'm either W-2'd, I don't know how the reimbursement gets to me, or I'm independent and I have to jump through 89 hoops to get paid, and my AR is aged, 90 plus days, which, by the way, that's not abnormal. An aged AR that's above 90%, that's almost median in the United States for independent physicians. That all dislocates capital. What you have to do is get this is why direct care, and I do not own any direct. I'll be very upfront of what I own, and I'm not advocating for anything that enhances me.
You're not grifting here?
No, I'll tell you what I am. But that's why direct care works so well. That's why the patients are more satisfied. That's why it's cheaper, and the outcomes are better, because it's just the physician and the patient, and they get to discuss what they need, how it's paid, when it's paid. It is a free market. You mentioned Dutch Rojas. Why I'm on Twitter, I've only been on Twitter for maybe 100 days now, and it was because I was working on a project for a social media company, and they said, you don't have any engagement. You need engagement. And it just, oh man, it's like shit like that makes me want to jump out of a window. But I've really enjoyed it. I've really, really enjoyed it. And Dutch Rojas, I was speaking at a conference, and he was there, and we were on a panel together. Never met the guy, and I just thought, oh wow, how fun is this guy? Mm-hmm. And he was just a kind of a kindred spirit. And so that's why I've been tweeting, is because of Dutch, or Xing or posting, whatever you call it.
Yeah,
and,
I still say tweeting.
I mean, I do too. And but it's been really, really fun. He's a free market guy, and this, again, I am apolitical, nonpartisan. You have to be in healthcare, and also just the nature of my work. I had to work with Democrats and I had to work with Republicans. I had to go from Nancy Pelosi's office to Mike Johnson's office, and so you have to be able to go, because it cuts both ways. And I tell legislators in every single state, in Congress, healthcare is a sword that will cut you Republicans today, Democrats tomorrow. You have to be very careful with the health policy. That's why you always have to look for highest and best use of health policy. But that's kind of my framework with free markets. Is if you will solve the problem with dislocated capital, which is the issue that third parties create, you will solve the problem with healthcare.
I'm really enjoying how concise and direct the connections you make are. You do a fantastic job of kind of taking this sometimes very murky, very gray area that I have a hard time putting labels on and saying like this is the problem or that's the problem, and like you encapsulate it very, very well, Heath. It's truly a joy to listen to.
Well, if it helps you, I can't change a tire. So I can do healthcare, but I can't do anything else in life.
Well, what's one of the things you talked to that I struggle with? I run a marketing agency. I work for initially it was a bunch of attorneys. Well, I still work for a bunch of attorneys. But I'm always saying like it's our job to serve those that are serving others, and about a year and a half, 2 years ago, I started working with some functional medicine doctors, and I was like, oh, this cash based, no insurance thing, because I'm reading reviews. I'm literally like seeing the reviews that my clients are getting, and kind of a little floored. And I'm like, and then I'm seeing their pricing models because we're building their website, running their social, and doing the SEO, and kind of doing this, that, and the other. And I'm looking at Google Trends, and I'm seeing, search volume around functional medicine is up 440% since like 2020 or something like that. So like, there's this massive awakening of people that are kind of heading that way. How do you feel about functional medicine, even though it's not, traditional medicine by any means, but it's a little bit more preventative, a little bit more, I don't know, woo-woo, like wherever you want to go with it. But how does a seasoned administrator look at functional medicine in that model?
Well, that's what I would tell physicians right off the bat. That's why I was a fan of functional medicine. Now it's called functional medicine. We used to call it, when I first started, we just called it wellness. And so, but as an administrator, I liked it because it creates more revenue and it creates more opportunities for revenue.
Direct revenue as opposed to that third-party revenue.
Absolutely. And it turns the patient into a consumer. I like that. And some physicians are going to get their assholes going to get real tight when I say that. But what I mean is a patient needs and a consumer wants. That is a big, big difference. That's a big difference. I want you to operate in a place of assertion. I want the patient to operate from a place of assertion, and I want the physician. And assertion requires autonomy. And if you operating from this place of need, you do not have agency and autonomy. So what we're trying to do is create consumers. And so the more you're activated in your own health, the more optimal your outcomes are going to be. And that's why we see a lot of confounding data I just read a study this morning. Well, the highlights, the abstract. It was talk about citrus with depressed people. That the more people who were drinking citrus, taking vitamin C, the less depressed they were. And so here's how a kind of intro to psych statistics professor explained this to me. There was a study once done that most shark attacks happen after people ate ice cream. Well, so what? That doesn't fucking matter. People eat ice cream on the beach. That's what they do during the summer. They eat ice cream. Sharks don't smell ice cream. It's confounded data. It is a correlation, not causation. A lot of people who are poor don't have access to citrus. They get up and they drink a Fanta, or here in New Orleans, drink a Big Shot, an orange soda. They ain't drinking citrus. They don't have any oranges in their house.
They're not getting the immunity boost
Right.
The immunity boost from Whole Foods.
That's exactly right. They're shopping at Dollar General. And I know this. I grew up poor. I mean, know how it is. It's not. So you have to watch out for some of this confounding data. If you will give people, though, agency and choice, guess what? A lot of these people who are drinking Fanta, they'd like to have a little citrus. Their life would be a little bit different. And you would find that they wouldn't be as depressed. And it has no fucking... Now, listen, I'm a big fan of vitamin C, and yes, there are there's a lot of literature on that, just like vitamin D, sunlight. But I think the point of that I'm trying to get to is there's a whole lot of things that are driving this, that if people had more agency, the freedom to choose, they would choose their health first. And functional medicine allows them to do that. I'm a big fan of wellness, functional medicine. I think it's great for physicians, and I think it's great for patients. and who we want to create, consumers.
Within the alternative medicine space. So that's what they consider at first, is alternative medicine. And then within that, you get everything from Reiki energy healing into red light therapy, into chiropractic, into osteopathic doctors, into functional medicine doctors, into integrative wellness, into it's just this holistic healthcare. Like there's this massive, like wide spectrum of things underneath this alternative medicine category, all of which provide value.
Sure.
Right? The singular mainstream healthcare system that everybody's kind of familiar with, like, they get it, right? Like, if I go to this guy, he's gonna tell me what's wrong. If he can't fix it, he's gonna send me to a specialist, and that specialist will take care of it. And whereas that system is just not available in the, we'll say, the alternative medicine space, right? Like, you're not gonna go to a doctor and then you're gonna be like, well, your energy's off. Go to this Reiki person, or like, you don't get that same. So even from a marketing standpoint, I have a great time with it. I really enjoy it because I am learning so much. Like, I was just meeting with this woman about red light therapy and rebuilding mitochondria through frequencies and this. I'm not a doctor. I don't understand it, but like I get the premise. I get what she's going for. And so I was talking about like funding because she's got these really cool different modalities and products with it. She's like, "Oh no, I nobody's gonna give me money for this." I'm like, seems pretty. Elon Musk or something, that large financial player that would, push something like that. It's just very interesting because it gets similar to the conspiratorial stuff where like you don't want to go to the dark end. You don't want to go too woo woo, right? But there's got to be somewhere in the middle, and there's got to be some financial incentive and some capital investment and something in there. What are your thoughts on all of that? Like, where would you like to see society and humanity go in entertaining, not only multiple options, but also like in the continued promotion of more private practice and more independent thinking within it, and allow some of those questions to be answered?
Well,
I like that I made you a little speechless here. This is great.
yeah, and I try to think what to say because I also don't want to sound like a loon coming off. Some of the things I could tell you would really make people.
I mean, we should put that disclaimer out there, is that like if it hasn't been peer reviewed and fully vetted and things like that, it may be total quackery and who knows, right? But also I also know that even just changing your mental energy towards a glass of water will change the actual structure of the water when you look at it under a microscope. So there's like something there, but like
what I think people have to do is, and here's how I was introduced to it. And even when I was an institutionalist, I understood this. In my undergrad, I was introduced to a science called psychoneuroimmunology. And then I fell in love with it. And I can't really talk a lot about what I was doing in graduate studies, but the power of belief is a real thing. The power of belief is a real thing. And whatever activates your placebo, let it activate it. You don't need to have a value judgment about it, And I've always been curious about people who are like, oh, well, I'm not going to go to a chiropractor because that's nothing. Does it make you feel better? Okay, you get relief. Fucking go. Who cares? It's kind of after COVID. I was in that. Well, I don't want to be seen at New Orleans Country Club like I'm, a loon. I don't want to. I can't say these kind of things out loud now. I don't give a fuck. You think I'm going to go to New Orleans Country Club? Be around those morons? No. Oh my God. Absolutely not. I wouldn't be caught dead in society anymore. I don't want to be in those spaces. And it's allowed me to be my authentic self. Eccentric, idiosyncratic, foibles, peccadillos, all of it. I know it more than anyone else. And I enjoy me. And it took a long time to get to me. And I think that's where we have to kind of get to. And we have to stop succumbing to these fallacies of logic and these cognitive biases. And we have to begin with understanding we got them. Where do we lean to? And so the problem when you're working with physicians with this is that it's how they're trained. I have really enjoyed working with physicians. But like I said earlier, they're the hardest sons of bitches to work for. They're so frustrating. And it's because of their training. And it's because of shit that we've done to them. as administrators, and that we've done to the academy, we've made them believe that they're all competitors. They're not. They're colleagues. But because they come out of school with that understanding, they cannot work together. They do not. It is very difficult for physicians to work together collegially and collaboratively because they feel very threatened. These sons of bitches are so paranoid. It is extremely difficult to get physicians to work collaboratively. And it, of course, life is in a distribution. I'll come back to that. But on this distribution, you have everything from the most paranoid, which is plastic and reconstructive surgery. They notice they don't work in groups. They occasionally, you'll see them work in pairs, maybe sometimes 3s and 4s. That's extremely rare. And then when you see them working in pairs, that's like trauma guys and the breast cancer guys. But Cosmo guys, those are singular people. They don't work together. And they believe everybody's stealing their patients, that everybody's doing their BBLs and their mommy makeovers and all that shit. Then you got people over here on the other end of the continuum that are pediatricians, that are basically activists with an MD, that want to hug you and spend 63 minutes in an encounter for a URI and sign you up on moveon.org for some kind of weird pronoun sharing thing. So you have a real continuum with physicians, and it makes it very, very difficult for them to work together. And so, I think that if we can start getting the consumer to understand to take agency and to stop deferring to authority, if you want to drink raw milk, go find you some fucking raw milk and drink it. Here's some risk. Know it. Raw milk has been, since I was at the Louisiana legislature, and that started in 2004 for me. And my CEO at the time would send me, and I would stay there 3 months out of the year, and we lived for the raw milk fight, because it was always these ladies who would come, and some were in bonnets and some were in Chanel, but they were all on the same page of raw milk, and it was always shot down by the ag commissioner and big dairy,
Mm-hmm.
And but my comment was always the same. If you know the risks, put on your big girl panties, big boy panties. Now, I don't, whatever you wear, don't wear anything. I don't care. And take the risk. Drink it.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it looks like for you. Everyone's health is different. And we used to be at the Joint Commission, we would say that healthcare was supposed to be individualized to you.
Mm-hmm.
It sure didn't seem like that during COVID. But hopefully we can get to a place where people see that healthcare should be tailored to you, and that what you need is a primary care physician who is untethered to a health system, to private equity, to Optum, to a third party that you trust, and that you can have an honest and frank conversation with, and they can give you some honest and frank feedback. That is who I have here in New Orleans. I go to a concierge physician, an MD VIP physician. Don't have any stake in MD VIP. I'm just saying there was not a whole lot of people that I could go to in New Orleans. And I will say I'm a peptide guy. And I used to be a big, big fatty, almost 500 pounds. And I like to, if there's a supplement, I like to try it. If there's a modality, I love to try it. I like to see if it works. I would not call myself a biohacker, but if you are, God bless. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I'm aging, so I want to have some optimal health. That's all. I just want to be, I want to have some cognition. I want to be able to think and try to be as sharp as I was when I was in my 20s. We have very honest feedback, and he'll tell me, that is crazy, or okay, let's try it. And I trust him, and he trusts my judgment, and that's how we work. And I think Americans just need to know that it's okay to have that relationship with a physician. It's okay. You need to do it. And I also think we need to get to a place where, employers pay for somewhere between 67 and 72% of insurance. That's really insurance in the United States. It's employer based health.
Yeah, but I guess like if you were to look at ideal situation, I'm all for cutting out all that fat, right? Like,
Yeah.
I debate on with health insurance. Like, I'd rather just say, like, here is a card, $300 gets added to it every single month.
Yeah.
Here's a list of 10 concierge doctors in your local area. I highly recommend you use one of those, but I'm not going to provide you with health insurance because I think health insurance is BS. And if you want to go, like my wife and I, we're at the point. I'm a military veteran, so I get VA healthcare. I'm a disabled veteran, and we've got 2 young kids and her, and nothing that we want is ever covered. Like, we get the gold package and like still not covered. So and we did that for like 2 years. We were like, why are we paying like out the ass for this thing that literally doesn't cover us for anything when we could just go and get like bare minimum covers for catastrophic anything, but then it frees up literally, my gosh, hundreds, nearly $1,000 it freed up between 3 people's health insurance to say like, let's go get a membership to Align Life, which is like a chiropractor that does anything from infants. Like our infant got adjusted hours after he was born because our neighbors, the guy that runs the practice that we go to, came over and it was fantastic. It doesn't cover any of that. Like, I feel like that there's some, there's a great business idea right there. It's like, take all the concierge doctors, we have a bunch in Greenville, which is fantastic. Take all of those, build a massive list. The money goes directly onto a card that you can use for those people. Screw insurance, right? Like, how do we get to that model?
Well, you have to do it through business and industry because they own 67 to 72% of the market, depending on variables from year to year and all that kind of stuff. But at a minimum, at 67% of healthcare coverage is paid through the employer. So you have to go directly to the employer, and this is where Dutch Rojas is very good. This is really what they do. And you go to the employer and say, look, I can save you money. Now, when I was very young, I was 26. I just left the hospital. I was 27. I just left the hospital. And I had a client, 80,000 employees. They were headquartered out of Denver. And they had a massive problem with ER visits. Their employees their healthcare costs were escalating. This one place had $14 million a year in healthcare costs, which at the time was just outrageous. And it was double their next most proximate location. And so I said, well, let's change the way we're doing primary care. Let's bring primary care in. We'll start treating them here. We'll do telehealth. And at the time, when I used to say telehealth, people used to look at me like I had 4 heads. I mean, this was it's like when I used to talk about AI, people thought I was insane. And so the people who stopped that, now remember, this company was completely self-insured. They wrote the check for healthcare. They were incented to drive healthcare costs down. Who came against me was the TPA, Blue Cross. Blue Cross flew in on private jets, and I remember the one meeting, and they were like, are you going to listen to this 27-year-old nobody from Louisiana, or are you going to listen to us? And they had 6 people from Blue, and I'm not going to tell you the state or but sitting around a table saying, this is the dumbest. Why? Because a TPA is paid on your health spend. The more you spend, the more the TPA makes. And health insurance companies' number one service line is TPA, third party administrator. So they get flat fee plus an amount of your spend. They are not incented for you to lower cost. They're incented for you to increase your costs. And what they want to do is increase your costs and for the patient to get lower utilization. So that way they keep the whole dollar. So it's very hard, but that's where you go. You go to business and industry, and you can start any self-insured business. It's a school board, it's a sheriff's department, it's a city, and say, look, we can lower your healthcare costs today. Ultimately, what I would like to get to is the Uber Eats model for healthcare, and that's what I've been pitching to certain tech companies. And it's probably, my lawyers would say it's unwise to talk about this on a podcast, but whatever. I've had so many ideas stolen that are out there in the ether today, it's whatever. If it works, it works. But that's what would ultimately work, is where a consumer had direct access, like Uber Eats. They can see the pricing, they can see the doctors in their radius, they can scroll up and, oh, I need this, and oh, I need that, and here's how I select. And then they find their shepherds that can shepherd them through. And then on this model, you can scroll through, and physician-owned hospitals are great about specializing. And it would be only a network of physicians, physician-owned hospitals, chiropractors, all of the different specialties, acupuncture and Reiki, which I like Reiki, so I was a big fan.
Yeah,
Nice,
I've done it before.
nice little massage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Could you feel the energy pulsating?
I could feel it when they walked in the room. And people think it's crazy, but there's a traditional Chinese medicine practice on the west bank of New Orleans. You can feel the heat of the guy when he walked in the room. No joke. And if it's placebo, it's placebo. I felt more relaxed. It was wonderful. I've gone a couple times. It's great.
Yeah, that's awesome, and that's why I'm always. It's a fine line to balance, right? Like, and just like you're saying with individualized care, like you and I need different healthcare. Like I've been skinny my whole life. I can't put weight on, right? Like that's
right.
That's my problem. How are you and I going to get put in the same bucket as far as like our health and nutrition and what we're supposed to be doing? Like, it's insane.
It's insane.
It's insane.
It's insane. We need the consumer, and that's key. We've got to transition from patient to consumer, and then we need to do as much as we can. And once physicians learn we can tether that to revenue, that we're not losing revenue by doing that. We're actually enhancing our revenue. And I don't like to talk about wellness. It's really wholeness, and we can go into a whole thing on wholeness. And it's not ethereal. It's very practical. But that's what you're really trying to get to. But you have to give people the agency to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. So before we wrap up here, tell me about what you got going on down here. I know. Well, I'm not going to put any words in your mouth. It's super exciting. I've been following your journey here a little bit, and I'm very happy that you are on Twitter, which is my favorite of the platforms because I feel like I can build my tribe a little bit tighter than maybe some of the other ones. But really exciting stuff that you have going on. So would you mind getting into it?
Yeah, no, we're opening physician-owned hospitals for physicians who want to do it. There is a way to do it. You can't right now take Medicare or Medicaid. We are working on that with the administration. We're working at hand in glove with the PHA. I do not take any money from the PHA, but they are a physician ally. And so if physicians want to open a hospital, we just finished one in Baton Rouge. It's for breast cancer exclusively. We're very direct with payers, and I pair my clients with Dutch. I will send them to Dutch and say, now go do the direct contracting model. We start hybrid. It's not, again, I'm an idealist. It's not fun, but you kind of have to start somewhere. And so we start with a traditional model. We're working with both Congress and and HHS, CMS right now on some waiver stuff. That physicians who want to participate in Medicare and Medicaid later can. And of course, we want to push for the moratorium and all those kind of things. And then I'm still working on getting something that's very disruptive out. And hopefully that'll be HealthX. Hopefully we'll get some flight with that, and you'll see it. You'll be able to do. It's kind of very complementary with the Everything app that Elon wants to do. And so hopefully my engagement will go up and they'll pay more attention. Ultimately, that's where I'd like to go. And it would be hand in glove with physicians and different kinds of providers and practitioners across the nation. It would all be direct. And that's how we get rid of the third party. People could go right there. And it's closer than you think. But I tried this with Amazon, and at the time Jeff Bezos decided to get into rockets. Fucking rockets. It's taking
Well, now
every time.
Amazon Pharmacy blows my mind a little bit. I don't know if it's serving the right and again, take whatever supplements, whatever pharmaceuticals you want, as long as it's not pressured onto you, by a doctor that's getting a kickback, right? Like,
That's exactly
if it's
right.
good for you, great. But like, don't let that be the reason.
Just know that that's what it was for, because that's not what when I was doing some stuff for Walmart, doing some stuff for Amazon, I did not know the ultimate end goal was 340B. 340B is now going away, but they still make a lot of money on drugs. So they want you to go through the bread aisle and push you to the pharmacy. On Amazon, they want you to shop and push to pharmacy. And they're very, very good at it. I'm to the extent people use pharmacy, I've been Big fan of Mark Cuban's Cost Plus Drugs. Those are affordable for people who are on polypharmacy or on expensive drugs. I'd push them to look in that direction. But somebody like an X, my pitch to Amazon was the same thing. You could be the world's largest insurer tomorrow. You could be a PMPM model with Prime Health. That was what I had pitched tomorrow. And there would be no more payers. You could network everything else out. But that was not they're interested in some other things. So, hopefully Elon will spare some time to look at healthcare. I know he's got a lot on his plate.
Well, hopefully engage with you and follow you a little more.
Sure, just follow me on X. DM me. I get DMs all day long. It's the easiest way. I respond right away. And then we can always have a call or set up a Zoom or Teams and visit.
Yeah, especially how many... Do you got a lot of irons in the fire here as far as more of these physician-owned hospitals?
I'm doing
across
4
the US?
right now. I'm only going to do 12. I had hair when I started this early in my career. Healthcare is stressful. I committed to do 12, and then somebody was like, just make it a baker's dozen. So out of a kind of a joke with a friend. So I've got 9 slots left. I am not going to do more than 13 of these. And we've got 4 underway right now. And so that's it. After this, no more. No mas. There will be other people who do it. And the great thing is physicians can do this too. But, it's fun. I enjoy it. And, it's going to be great.
Yeah.
Right. Kind of integral. Right.
Yo,
Yeah. Yep. No, see you. Appreciate it. Veuleman. Yeah. It's very good.
yes. Heath over on X, and I'm super excited to see kind of what else you do in this world. Thank you so
Appreciate
much
it.
for coming on.
Good to see you. Thanks.
All right, you.
Yo, Flexner's dead, the Rockefellers too. The AMA's a relic, we're coming for you. Thought you buried the truth, left it in the dirt. But functional medicine's back and it's putting in work. Flexner's report, yeah, that was the start of a system built to tear real healing apart. Rockefellers cashed in, big pharma got paid, while the AMA kept the whole game rigged and played. But guess what? Your empire's starting to crack. We're taking it back, no more knives in our backs. Raw milk in the fridge, fresh veggies on the plate. Regenerative farms, yeah, we're changing the state. Phoenix rising, we're burning it down. Functional medicine taking the crown. Big agra, big pharma, your time is through. We're sovereign, independent, and coming for you. No more processed lies, no more fake food. We're building a future where our kids can bloom. Poison and bear, we're bringing life back, putting roots in the air. Regenerative ag, where the soil's alive. Holistic health warriors, we're ready to thrive. No more pills for the pain, no more chemical chains. We're breaking addictions, rewiring brains. From the clutches of greed, we're yanking them free. This is health for the people, not monopoly. Yo, big pharma, you thought you had it locked, but your house of cards is about to get rocked. We're talking raw milk, fresh greens, no stress. Functional medicine's here and we're bringing our best. Holistic health, yeah, it's taking the lead. While your system's dying, consumed by greed. We're warriors for health, sovereign and strong. And we're building a world where our kids belong. Phoenix rising, we're burning it down. Functional medicine taking the crown. Big agra, big pharma, your time is through. future where our kids can bloom. Flexner's dead, the Rockefellers too. The aim of man was a relic, we're coming for you. Thought you buried the truth, left it in the dirt, but functional medicine's back and it's